kicking us off with the prospect of legal threats. Purely hypothetical here, but Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase, big old US exchange, is thinking about what would happen if there was the potential for regulatory intervention as it relates to the new Ethereum network. When posed a question on Twitter, he jumped in the replies and say, hey, if push came to shove and we were asked to censor Ethereum transactions at the protocol level, we would likely do that so as to not run afoul of Johnny Law. Rational response, potentially big picture thinking, but certainly a conversation that is taking place quite loudly in the wake of OFAC sanctioning the entirety of the Tornado Cash protocol, causing some people to be alarmed that future actions may go even farther. So this is interesting always to see the CEO of a major exchange in the space get into the comments on Twitter. I think that is a feature of the space. It's relatively flat in terms of people getting involved and talking and sharing their opinions. But the big picture here is, hey, don't want to run afoul of the law. And if it came down to it, we're a company. We have to protect our corporate interests. And that's what we will do. I'm going to toss this to Adam for his thoughts on this latest news from Coinbase.
Yeah, it's an interesting piece of news. I think more so in that it really kind of draws us back to the philosophy of cryptocurrency. That philosophy basically says that this is not just a better way to do things. This is sort of a fundamental reorganization of how things can be done and of how things perhaps should be done in recognition of those new realities. So this is a tension that I think that we're going to see increasingly as we go over the course of the next couple of years, and as Ethereum clearly rises as an increasingly important force, not just in the world of collectibles, but also in the world of finance. One of the things about Ethereum that my sense is, at least, as someone who really don't consider myself a Bitcoiner or an Ethereum fan, anything like that, I'm in general a fan of these technologies, but it's hard to, really do anything other than just recognize what's happening right now. Right now, what I think we're seeing that the Ethereum ecosystem, which has been much more comfortable with government oversight, has been much more comfortable with, the types of controls and the types of requirements that really a lot of people in the world of Bitcoin have not been. This is the challenge, is that as you become more important, it becomes harder to resist the pressures that naturally come upon you to be compliant with sort of the rest of the world, right? And in a world of, Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, there is no founder, nobody knows anything about anything, there are no companies who are systemically important. Like, you can see that Bitcoin has given up a lot to keep that robustness that has made it so that this type of stuff doesn't really matter in the same way. Ethereum has gone the other direction, and so it's both an opportunity and a challenge for them. But it's not at all surprising to see these types of moves from, again, publicly traded CEOs. There's a ton of responsibility that falls on you when you're in one of those positions. And so this just seems like it's the only possible answer that you could give, because otherwise you're basically saying, that either we're going to, this is going to ruin parts of the ecosystem, or we're going to shut down parts of our own ecosystem and then be less competitive as a result of being in these jurisdictions. So it's not surprising. It's a little bit disappointing to see, but I think it's a big issue that Ethereum is going to have to deal with over the course of the next couple of years. Jen?
Yeah, I was also not surprised by this. I mean, and also kudos to Brian Armstrong, who's just so willing to get out there and share his opinion and be so publicly outspoken about a lot of the things we talk about in the space. I think him choosing to rather shut down staking than enable on-chain censorship is not surprising coming from him. He's shown that, he is driven by that foundational ethos that you were talking about, Adam. But at the same time, he really needs to be on the right side of regulators. Coinbase has definitely been in the spotlight lately. There's the insider trading case. The SEC is looking at them for a bunch of alleged securities that are on the platform. And then if you remember last year, they shut down their Lend product because the SEC threatened to sue. So I think, Coinbase really can't afford to be on the wrong side of regulators. And so, again, not a surprising tweet. But Zach, back to you.
Yeah, I think with the proof of stake transition for Ethereum, right, it's a whole new way to secure the network. And there is the emergence of some very large validators, some of which are exchanges themselves. And I think there are sort of concerns that those are entities that may be censored, sanctioned, or otherwise inhibited from carrying out an uncensored transaction history on the Ethereum blockchain. So these are some of those big picture questions that you often hear sort of bandied about in the debate between proof of stake and proof of work, which are two very different competing versions for how to secure a network. Ethereum heretofore has been proof of work, but this is a big shift, obviously, to proof of stake. And it introduces sort of these game theoretical, weird things that have to be reckoned with when it comes to nation state level attacks on this network. And I think to Adam's point, that exchanges are sort of becoming bigger and bigger validators of the new Ethereum is something that potentially has ramifications down the line. But we will wait to see what those ramifications are, and I'm sure we'll talk about it then.